Hello?
Welcome.
This is the Two Cities.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Welcome back to Tales of Two Cities podcast. This is the next episode in our Halloween marathon of minis. I'm Nikki, and in this episode, we'll be heading to Alaska for the story of the Butcher Baker. So sit back and relax, if you can, for this tale of death and darkness. Robert Christian Hansen was born February 15, 1939, in Esterville, Iowa, to a Danish baker. When he was young, he was rather thin and very shy. He struggled with both acne and a stutter that only added to his anxiety. He was shunned by the pretty girls, and soon he began to develop a deep resentment of these girls and eventually all women. He was described as a quiet loner, and his overbearing father only worsened the struggles during his most emotionally vulnerable and awkward teenage years. He looked for a hobby as an outlet and found that hunting became his favorite pastime. In 1967, Hansen enlisted in the United States Army Reserve and served for 1 year before being discharged. He then took his skills to work as an assistant drill instructor at the police academy in Pocahontas, Iowa. Having grown out of his inability to speak to girls, he began a relationship with a younger woman before marrying her in the summer of 1960. Before the year had ended, he was arrested for arson. He burned down the Pocahontas County Board of Education school bus garage. He was found guilty and served only 20 months of a 3-year sentence in the Anamosa State Penitentiary. This complicated his personal life, though. His wife filed for divorce while he was in prison, and over the next few years, he was jailed several times for petty theft. In 1963, he married his second wife. The couple had 2 children together. In 1967, he decided it was time for a change of scenery. He moved to Anchorage, Alaska, where he had followed in his father's footsteps, becoming a humble baker. There, his neighbors spoke highly of him, and he set several local hunting records. But beneath the surface was something lurking, that animosity from childhood. On June 13th, 1983, 17-year-old Cindy Paulson escaped from Hansen while he attempted to load her into his car. She told police that he had propositioned her. He offered $200 in exchange for oral sex. When she agreed and got into the car, he pulled a gun on her. He drove her to his home, where he held her captive. He tortured her, raped, and sexually assaulted her. He had her chained by the neck to a post in the basement, leaving her there while he took a nap on the couch. When he woke up, he put her in the back of his car. He told her he was going to take her to his cabin and proceeded to head to the Merrifield Airport. The cabin was, in actuality, a meat shack in the Nick River area, only accessible by boat or small plane. Cindy was crouched in the back seat. Her wrists were cuffed in front of her. She waited for Hansen to be distracted. As he began loading the airplane's cockpit, and with his back turned, she crawled out of the back seat, opened the driver's door, and ran towards 6th Avenue. Hansen panicked and chased after her, but she managed to flag down a passing truck. Luckily, Robert Yount, the driver, who stopped for Cindy, was shocked by Cindy's disheveled appearance and decided to pick her up. He dropped her off at the Mush Inn, where she jumped out of the truck to ask the clerk to call her boyfriend. Yount proceeded to work, but felt compelled to report the barefoot and handcuffed woman to police. The Anchorage Police Department sent officers to Mush Inn, but they had just missed Cindy. She had taken a cab to the motel where her boyfriend worked. When the police arrived, they found her still handcuffed and alone. She was taken to the headquarters and asked to describe the man who had done this. She told police that she had left her shoes, blue sneakers, on the passenger side of the floor of the car. This provided evidence verifying that she had been in the vehicle. When Hansen was questioned, he denied the accusation. He tried to argue that Cindy was just trying to cause trouble and that she was extorting him, but he refused to pay. Despite Hansen having a long rap sheet, his meek demeanor and humble occupation plus a strong alibi from his friend John Henning, kept him from being considered a serious suspect. Detective Glenn Floth had been part of the Alaska State Troopers team that was investigating several bodies that had been found in and around the Anchorage area. The team had found 4 that they believed to be connected to a single killer. Floth decided to contact FBI Special Agent Roy Hazelwood and request a criminal psychological profile based on the bodies that had been found. Hazelwood concluded that the killer would likely be an experienced hunter with low self-esteem, someone who had a history of being rejected by women, likely someone who would feel compelled to keep souvenirs of his murders. He suggested it might be something like jewelry. Hazelwood even went as far to suggest that the assailant might stutter. Floth used the profile to reevaluate possible suspects. When he reached Hansen, it all clicked. He fit the profile and had a plane to access the remote areas where the bodies were found. With Cindy's testimony and Hazelwood's psychological profile, Floth and the Anchorage police secured a warrant to search Hansen's plane, cars, and home. On October 27, 1983, just before Halloween, Hazelwood's profile came full circle. The investigators found jewelry belonging to some of the women missing, as well as firearms hidden in the corner of a hideaway in Hansen's attic. Though the most damning evidence was an aviation map with little X's on it, it was hidden behind his headboard. When confronted with the evidence, Hansen denied it initially. But, eventually, he began to blame the women and attempted to justify his motives. He confessed to each item of evidence as the investigators presented them to him. He admitted to a spree of attacks on Alaskan women, starting in 1971. His first victims were young, between the ages of 16 and 19, and they hadn't been the sex workers that had led to his discovery. In all, he is known to have raped and assaulted over 30 Alaskan women and murdered at least 17, though Hansen was only charged with 4 murders and the kidnapping and rape of Cindy. Hansen pled guilty to all 4 homicides and provided details on the other victims in return for serving his sentence in a federal prison, with no publicity in the press. He also agreed to help confirm the locations of the other victims' bodies using the map found behind his headboard. He confirmed the police theory of how he had abducted the women. The remains of 12, but potentially 21 victims, were exhumed by the police and returned to their families. He was sentenced to 461 years plus life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was first imprisoned at the United States Penitentiary Lewisburg in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, before being sent back to Alaska briefly to be housed in Lemon Creek Correctional Center in Juneau. He moved to Spring Creek Correctional Center in Seward until May 2014, when he was transported to the Anchorage Correctional Complex for health reasons. On August 21, 2014, at the Alaska Regional Hospital in Anchorage, the man known as the Butcher Baker died of undisclosed lingering health conditions. Thanks for listening to this episode in our Halloween marathon of minis. There are more episodes coming, so stay tuned. In the meantime, we love hearing from all of you, so hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or email us at talesofTwoCitiesPodcast@gmail.com. That's talesofthe2citiespodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on the listening platform of your choice. And if you really just can't wait for the next episode, check out our Patreon for bonus content and other rad stuff. Plus, we have our merch, so check us out on tpublic.com. Just search Tales of Two Cities Podcast to find our shop. Like I said, we've got more cold-blooded killers coming your way as our Halloween marathon of minis continues. Until next time.